From that night forward, they worked even closer, no longer as a secret pair, but as partners on purpose. Their foundation grew stronger, their love deeper. People began to see them not as a scandal, but as a symbol. Two souls from different worlds who had built something beautiful from trust and faith. And sometimes, late at night, when they sat together in silence, his hand in hers, their hearts calm after all the storms, Sami would whisper, "Do you still regret not hiding who we are?" Changmin would smile and reply, "How can I regret what saved me?" Months after the scandal faded, a new light began to rise over Myri Group and over Sami's life. The Myri Hope Initiative had not only survived the storm but had grown into something far greater than anyone imagined. Donations poured in from across Korea and beyond, and international organizations began reaching out to collaborate. But what made it special wasn't the fame. It was Sami's heart guiding every step. She had become the public face of the foundation, traveling to schools, organizing training for young women, and mentoring interns. Her soft-spoken kindness and fierce determination began to inspire others. Newspapers started calling her the Heart of Myri. At first, she felt uneasy being in the spotlight. She didn't want to overshadow Changmin, but he was the first to assure her otherwise. One evening, they sat on the balcony of his penthouse overlooking Seoul. The city shimmered beneath them like a sea of gold. Changmin poured her a cup of tea, his sleeves rolled up, his tone teasing. "You realize people now recognize you before me?" Sami laughed softly. "That's not true." "Oh, it is," he said with a mock sigh. "At the last event, the Minister of Culture shook your hand twice and barely looked at me." She giggled, shaking her head. "Maybe he just likes polite women better than intimidating CEOs. Changmin leaned closer, eyes twinkling. "Or maybe he knows you're the real power behind Myri now." Sami smiled, her eyes soft. "You're exaggerating." He reached out, gently tucking her hair behind her ear. "I'm not. You've become everything I admired about you. Strong, kind, brave. Watching you lead makes me fall for you all over again." Her breath caught, the sincerity in his voice wrapping around her heart like warmth. "Changmin," she whispered, "you're the reason I had the courage to grow." He smiled faintly, taking her hand. "Then maybe we made each other." Their bond grew deeper, no longer just romantic, but profoundly respectful. They challenged each other, balanced each other, and completed each other. But as Sami's work expanded, her schedule became as demanding as his. Days blurred with meetings, flights, and events. She found herself learning to navigate media interviews, proposal pitches, and leadership decisions. And though Changmin was proud, he began to miss her presence. Her quiet laughter in his office, their shared lunches, their late-night coffee talks. One night, after returning from a 3-day trip to Busan, Sami walked into the penthouse to find the lights dimmed and Changmin sitting on the couch, waiting. He looked up as she entered, his voice low. "You're home late." She dropped her bag, exhaustion evident in her eyes. The event ran over time. "I'm sorry." He stood, walking toward her, his tone softer now. "Don't apologize. I just miss you." Sami looked up, surprised. "You?" He chuckled quietly. "The CEO of Myri Group, missing his girlfriend like a teenager?" "Yes, it's happening." Her smile returned, tired but warm. "You have no idea how much I missed this. Just being here with you." He cupped her cheek gently. "Then stay. Just for tonight, no calls, no work, no cameras. Just us." She melted against him, whispering, "Deal." That night, they curled up together on the couch, a blanket draped over them, the glow of the city beyond the glass. Sami rested her head on his shoulder. "Do you ever think about where all this is leading?" Changmin smiled faintly. "Every day. I mean, our lives. My work. Yours. The world we're building." He brushed his thumb along her hand. "I think about it, yes, but I don't need to know the destination yet. As long as you're beside me, the journey's already enough." Her heart swelled, and she whispered, "You always know how to say the right thing." He laughed quietly. That's because I've been studying you since the day you walked into my company. She looked up at him, amused. Oh, really? He nodded. Every little thing, the way you tilt your head when you read, the way your voice softens when you're nervous, the way you smile when you talk about home. I know all of it, Sami. Her lips curved into a shy smile. And here I thought you only fell for me recently. He leaned closer, his breath brushing her ear. I fell for you the moment you asked me where the printer was. She laughed. That gentle, melodic laugh that always melted his composure. You're impossible, Changmin. He smiled, eyes glowing with affection. And you're unforgettable. The next morning, before dawn, she woke to find him asleep beside her, his arm draped over her waist, his breathing soft and even. For a moment, she just watched him. The man who had once hidden behind a mask of power, now at peace beside her. She traced her fingers lightly across his hand and whispered to herself, I think I finally understand what love feels like. Not perfect, not easy, but real. He stirred slightly, his voice muffled with sleep. You're talking to yourself again, aren't you? She smiled. You were supposed to be asleep. Can't sleep when the love of my life whispers poetry beside me. She laughed quietly, kissing his forehead. Go back to sleep, Mr. CEO. He smiled lazily, his voice fading into drowsy warmth. Only if you promise to stay when I wake. I'm not going anywhere, she whispered, and she meant it. Their love, once hidden behind office walls and whispered secrets, had grown into something unshakable. A partnership of equals, built on trust, respect, and a kind of tenderness that neither of them had known before. And as dawn painted soul in gold, Sami lay beside him, knowing that no matter what came next, fame, challenge, or change, she would face it hand in hand with the man who once hid his identity just to be close to her. Because now there was no need to hide. Their hearts were already home. Spring had come to Seoul, soft and golden, and love bloomed quietly between Sami and Changmin like a secret garden finally opened to the sun. Their lives had grown beautifully entwined. Sami's laughter filled his once cold penthouse. Her favorite books lay scattered across his desk. He had even learned to cook jollof rice just for her, though his first few attempts ended in fiery disaster that made her laugh until she cried. In return, she learned to make his favorite kimchi stew, often sneaking into his kitchen after work to surprise him. Their evenings had become a ritual of laughter, teasing, soft music, and late-night talks about dreams that felt within reach. They were happy, not in the grand, glittering way the world expected of a billionaire and his beloved, but in the quiet, domestic way that made ordinary moments feel eternal. But Changmin had been keeping another secret, one he'd been planning for months. It began with a question that changed everything. One evening, after a long day at the foundation, Sami returned home to find a note on her vanity mirror written in his familiar, neat handwriting. Follow the candles. Curious, she turned and gasped. A soft trail of candles led through the penthouse, their golden light flickering against the glass walls. Outside, the city glowed beneath a sky brushed with twilight. She followed the path, her heart racing with wonder, until it led her to the rooftop garden, the place where they had once watched Seoul from above after the scandal cleared. Only now it was transformed. Fairy lights hung from the railings like fallen stars. White rose petals carpeted the floor, and at the center, standing tall and breathtaking in a black suit, was Changmin. He turned as she stepped out, his eyes filled with warmth and something deeper. Sami, he said softly, walking toward her. Do you remember the night you stood here and told me that love was about standing together through the storm? She nodded, her throat tightening. Of course. He smiled gently. You were right. You've stood beside me in every storm. You saw the man beneath the title, believed in me when I doubted myself, and showed me what home really means. Her eyes glistened as he dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. The night went still. Even the city seemed to hold its breath. Sami Nwosu, he said, his voice trembling with emotion. From the moment you asked me where the printer was, you've been the one thing that made sense in my world. I fell in love with your heart, Not your beauty, not your strength, but the way you see goodness in everything. You made me want to be a better man, not a better CEO. He opened the box. Inside was a delicate ring, a gold band with a single diamond that shimmered softly under the lights. Will you marry me? Sami's hands flew to her mouth. Her heart beat wildly, not from shock, but from the overwhelming rush of love that filled her chest. Tears spilled freely as she nodded, whispering, "Yes, yes, Chong-min, 1,000 times yes." He rose, slipping the ring onto her trembling finger before pulling her into his arms. She laughed and cried against his chest as he kissed her forehead. The world seemed to disappear, the noise, the city, the lights, until there was nothing left but them. Later that night, as they sat together beneath the fairy lights, she rested her head on his shoulder, still staring at the ring that glittered on her hand. "Did you plan this alone?" she asked softly. He chuckled. "I might have bribed your assistant for your schedule, and begged your best friend to distract you all week." She laughed, wiping a tear. "You're unbelievable. I had to make it perfect," he murmured. "You deserve nothing less." Sami turned, her eyes meeting his. "It's already perfect, not because of the ring or the lights, but because it's you." He smiled, brushing his lips against her hand. "Then promise me one thing." "What?" "No matter how big the world gets, no matter how far our dreams take us, promise me we'll never stop being us." She smiled through the glow of tears. "That's the easiest promise I'll ever make." And under the soul night sky, surrounded by the lights of the city that had once tried to tear them apart, Sami and Chong-min sealed their love with a kiss that spoke of forever. The billionaire who once hid his identity for love had finally found the courage to reveal his heart. And the young African woman who once saw him as an ordinary man had now become the most extraordinary part of his life. Every morning began with the same ritual. Sami waking up to a soft kiss on her forehead and Chong-min's warm whisper against her ear. "Good morning, my fiancé." It never failed to make her blush. She would smile sleepily, wrapping her arms around him. "You just like saying that word." He'd chuckle quietly. "Maybe, but every time I do, it reminds me I'm the luckiest man alive." Their engagement life was a tender dance between passion and peace. Chong-min, ever the planner, insisted that they take time away from the noise of the media. So he whisked Sami away to Nami Island one weekend, a place filled with trees that leaned into one another like lovers. The path was lined with golden leaves, the soft hush of the river flowing nearby. Sami wore a long beige coat and a knitted scarf, her gloved fingers intertwined with his as they walked in silence. "You really didn't have to bring me here," she said softly. "You're busier than ever." He glanced at her with a half-smile. "You are my busiest priority." She laughed. "That's not how priorities work, Mr. CEO. He leaned closer, his voice low and teasing. "Then maybe you should teach me how to manage my heart better." Her laughter filled the quiet air, and he thought there was no sound more beautiful. They spent the day wandering through art galleries, feeding birds by the water, and taking endless photos, though most of them ended with him staring at her instead of the camera. At sunset, they sat beneath the famous ginkgo trees, golden light spilling over them like a promise. "Do you ever get scared?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Of what?" "Of how fast everything is changing. Us, this life, the future." He reached out, brushing her cheek gently. "I used to be scared of losing control. Now I'm only scared of losing you." Her eyes shimmered. "You won't. You never will." He smiled softly. "Then let's keep building a life where love isn't just a feeling, but a habit." She tilted her head. "A habit?" "Yes," he said, his thumb tracing circles on her hand. "Like breathing, like coming home." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, he kissed her, slow, deep, and full of everything words could never hold. Back in Seoul, their engagement life took on a rhythm that felt like poetry. Chong-min would surprise her at work, showing up unannounced with coffee and that boyish grin that always made her heart flutter. Sometimes he'd pull her aside after meetings, whispering, "Let's escape," and they'd sneak up to the rooftop terrace, where he'd wrap his coat around her shoulders and they'd share quiet minutes away from the world. At home, they'd cook together, or rather, Sami cooked while Changmin assisted, which usually meant stealing tastes from the pan until she swatted him playfully with a spoon. "Stop eating before it's ready," she'd scold, trying not to smile. "But it tastes better when you feed me," he'd say, leaning closer, eyes sparkling with mischief. "Flattery won't save you from burnt fingers," she'd reply, but she always ended up feeding him anyway. Every evening, after the world had quieted down, they would sit by the window, the city glittering beneath them. Changmin would rest his head in her lap as she played with his hair. Sometimes they talked about their future, not in grand detail but in soft possibilities. "How many children do you want?" he'd ask lazily. "Two," she'd say. "One like you, one like me." He'd grin. "Impossible. They'll both look like you. I'll make sure of it." "Then you'll have to try hard," she'd tease. He'd open one eye, smirking. "Oh, trust me, I plan to." Her laughter would fill the air again, and he'd close his eyes, thinking he could live forever in that sound. Their engagement wasn't about diamonds or headlines. It was about quiet mornings, gentle touches, whispered laughter, and shared dreams. They didn't rush the future. They simply lived in the beauty of now. Because for Changmin and Sami, love wasn't something to announce. It was something to live. The morning of their wedding dawned like a dream, soft golden light spilling through the Seoul skyline, a cool spring breeze carrying the scent of cherry blossoms in bloom. Sami stood before a tall mirror in her bridal suite, her reflection almost unrecognizable, breathtaking, radiant, and touched with emotion. Her gown flowed like a whisper of clouds, elegant yet simple, designed with delicate lace and pearl beading that shimmered softly whenever she moved. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her veil. Behind her, her best friend and bridesmaid, Unbai, smiled warmly. "You look like a dream, Sami," she said softly. Sami laughed lightly, though her voice trembled. "I feel like one. I still can't believe this is real." Unbai grinned. "Oh, it's real. The entire city has been talking about this wedding for weeks. The mysterious African beauty who stole Korea's most powerful CEO." Sami blushed, shaking her head. "I didn't steal anyone. He found me. And never let go," Unbai said with a wink. Meanwhile, downstairs in the private garden of the Myri Villa, an estate overlooking the Han River, Changmin stood beneath an archway draped in white roses and lilac blooms. He looked effortlessly regal in his ivory suit, his dark hair neatly styled, his eyes fixed on the aisle where she would soon appear. He had faced shareholders, media storms, and board meetings, but nothing had ever made his heart pound like this moment. His best man, his younger brother Minjun, smirked. "You look like a man walking into battle." Changmin gave a small laugh. "This is the only battle I never want to win. Just surrender." Minjun patted his shoulder. "Good answer, Hyung." Then, as the music began, a soft piano rendition of "Can't Help Falling in Love," everyone turned. Changmin's breath caught. Sami appeared at the end of the aisle, the sunlight catching her gown, her smile glowing through her veil. Every step she took felt like the world itself held its breath. He could barely move, his chest ached with emotion. She was more than beautiful. She was his peace. When she reached him, he took her hand, warm, trembling, real, and whispered, "You came to me like sunlight after a long night." She smiled, eyes glistening. "And you stayed like warmth I never want to lose." The ceremony was intimate, only close friends, family, and a few members of their foundation. White petals floated down from the trees as the officiant spoke gentle words of love and unity. When it was time for their vows, Sami turned to face Changmin, her voice trembling but strong. "Changmin, you were a mystery at first. My quiet boss who watched and smiled but never revealed himself. But beneath all that power, I found a man with a heart too kind for the world. You've shown me love that's patient, love that protects, and love that heals. I promise to walk beside you, not behind, not ahead, but right next to you, for every sunrise we're blessed to see. Tears filled Changmin's eyes as he gently squeezed her hands. Then he spoke, his deep voice carrying through the still air. Sami, from the day I met you, my life changed in ways I can't explain. You reminded me that love isn't found in perfection, but in honesty. You made me believe in forever. I promise to guard your heart like it's my own, to make you laugh when life gets hard, and to love you quietly, fiercely, endlessly, just as I do now. By the time he finished, not a single eye remained dry. When the officiant declared, "You may kiss your bride," Changmin cupped her face tenderly and kissed her, slow and deep, sealing not just a promise, but a destiny. The guests erupted in applause. Cherry petals swirled through the air like blessings from heaven. The reception sparkled with joy. Soft jazz played under fairy lights. Sami and Changmin danced barefoot on the grass, her gown trailing behind her like a silver mist. "Mrs. Lee," he whispered against her ear, his hands resting on her waist. "How does it feel?" She smiled up at him, her voice sweet. "It feels like every dream I never dared to have has finally come true." He looked at her for a long moment before whispering, "No more hiding, no more masks, just you and me, as we were always meant to be." "Just us?" she echoed, laying her head on his chest. And as the night deepened, their dance slowed, the world fading around them. Later, after the guests had left and the lights had dimmed, they returned to the villa balcony, overlooking the quiet Han River. Changmin slipped off his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "You're shivering," he murmured. "Just a little," she whispered, leaning into him. He gazed at her, the moonlight soft on her face. "You know, I used to believe love was a distraction, something that weakened focus." She smiled faintly. "And now I know it's the only thing that gives life meaning." Sami's eyes softened. "You've changed so much." He shook his head gently. "No, you didn't change me, Sami. You reminded me who I was meant to be." Her lips trembled with emotion as he kissed her again. Tenderly, reverently, as if she were the answer to every silent prayer he'd ever made. That night, they didn't speak much. They simply sat together, wrapped in silence, watching the reflection of city lights ripple across the water. It wasn't just a wedding. It was the closing of one chapter, and the beginning of an eternity written in heartbeats and shared breaths. Because after everything, secrets, storms, and second chances, Changmin had finally found his peace, and Sami had finally found her forever. After the grandeur of their wedding, Changmin and Sami wanted nothing loud or public. No flashing cameras, no interviews, no schedules, just peace. And so, 3 days later, they slipped away quietly from Seoul to Jeju Island, the place where sea met sky in a symphony of calm. Their villa sat on a cliffside surrounded by wildflowers and overlooking a stretch of turquoise water. It was private, serene, and breathtakingly beautiful, the kind of place that made time slow down. When they arrived, Sami stood by the balcony, the ocean breeze caressing her face. She turned to see Changmin standing behind her, still in casual white linen, his hair slightly tousled by the wind. "You brought me to paradise," she whispered. He smiled softly. "No, I just followed you here. You are my paradise." Sami laughed lightly, but her heart melted. "You never stop saying things like that." "I mean every word," he murmured, walking closer until his arms circled her waist. "You've made me forget the world outside of this moment." She tilted her head up, meeting his gaze. "Then let's not remember it for a while." And with that, he kissed her, slow and deep, the sound of waves crashing softly below them. Their day. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment. Also like, share, and subscribe to my channel and click on the notification icon so that you will get notified whenever a new story is uploaded.